Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Have you ever felt like you're surrounded by people who are confidently wrong? They speak loudly, they argue passionately, they have opinions on everything, and yet something feels off. Now here's the dangerous question. What if you're one of them? Plato believed most humans live their entire lives like that, certain, loud, emotional, but blind. Plato wasn't sitting in some peaceful garden thinking soft thoughts. He was watching democracy collapse, teachers being executed, crowds cheering ignorance. And he asked a question that still hurts today. What if most people don't actually want truth? What if they only want comfort? This isn't ancient philosophy. This is a mirror. And once you see it, you don't get to unsee it. If this kind of thinking makes you uncomfortable already, you're in the right place. Like the video, subscribe, not because it helps the algorithm, but because most people click away before the truth finishes its sentence. Now let's talk about Plato.
Plato wasn't born powerful. He was born into chaos. Athens was supposed to be the peak of civilization, democracy, freedom, debate. But Plato saw the cracks early. He watched politicians win not because they were wise, but because they were entertaining. Sound familiar? He watched crowds decide truth by volume, justice by popularity. And then something happened that changed him forever. His teacher, Socrates, was sentenced to death by the very democracy that claimed to love wisdom. Why? Because he asked questions. Too many, too honestly. And Plato learned a brutal lesson. Truth doesn't die quietly. It gets executed publicly. From that moment on, Plato stopped trusting crowds, not because they were evil, but because they were emotional.
You've heard of it. The Allegory of the Cave. But most people hear it like a bedtime story. Let's strip the poetry. Imagine people chained in a cave, watching shadows on a wall. They think shadows are reality, not because they're stupid, but because it's all they've ever seen. Now here's the part nobody likes. Plato wasn't talking about them. He was talking about us. Social media, news, trends, opinions, shadows with better lighting. And the funniest or darkest part? When one person escapes the cave, sees the real world, and comes back to tell the truth, the others don't thank him. They mock him. They attack him. They say, "Bro thinks he's enlightened now." Plato understood something painful. People don't hate lies. They hate being told they're living one. Now careful. This part makes people angry. Plato didn't hate democracy because he loved tyranny. He distrusted democracy because he understood psychology. He believed giving equal political power to unequal wisdom was like letting passengers vote on how to fly a plane. Most people don't want responsibility. They want reassurance. And the leaders who rise? Not the wisest, the loudest, the most confident, the most emotionally appealing. Plato looked at this and said, if ignorance is popular, truth becomes dangerous. That's not anti-people. That's anti-illusion. People call Plato elitist, and they're not entirely wrong, but they misunderstand why. Plato didn't believe everyone was equal in thinking. He believed everyone was equal in potential, but not in effort. Some people train their minds. Most don't. And Plato had the audacity to say, those who don't discipline their thinking shouldn't control reality. That sounds harsh until you realize we already accept this logic everywhere else. We don't let random people perform surgery. We don't let feelings design bridges. But when it comes to truth, suddenly everyone's opinion is sacred. Plato would laugh, then worry. Plato's most controversial idea, the philosopher king, a ruler who doesn't want power but understands it, a leader trained in logic, ethics, restraint. And here's the twist. Plato didn't think philosophers were good rulers. He thought only reluctant rulers were safe, because those who crave power are usually the least qualified to handle it. Now ask yourself honestly, do the people chasing attention today look like people who should have authority, or do they look like people addicted to applause? Plato predicted this disaster 2,400 years ago. That's not philosophy, that's foresight. Let's bring this closer. Plato believed most humans live reactively, driven by desire, pleasure, validation. He divided the soul into three parts: reason, spirit, and appetite. And here's the joke, dark but accurate. Most people let appetite drive the car and ask reason for directions after crashing. Food, sex, status, comfort? Nothing wrong with desire, but when desire rules, truth becomes negotiable. Plato would look at modern life and say, "You're not free, you're entertained." Plato doesn't flatter you. He doesn't say, "You're perfect the way you are." He says, "You're capable of more, but you probably won't choose it." Because thinking is hard, illusions are easy. And here's the most dangerous idea Plato ever had. Ignorance isn't the absence of knowledge, it's the refusal to question what feels good. That hits too close, so people dismiss him, call him outdated, unrealistic. But deep down, they know he's pointing at something real. Imagine a man who finally escapes the cave. He sees the sun, the sky, reality. He comes back excited. But when he speaks, his eyes struggle in the darkness. He sounds unsure. The others laugh. "See," they say, "outside ruined him." So they stay. Not because they're stupid, because leaving would mean admitting they were wrong their whole life. Plato knew the hardest prison to escape is the one that tells you you're free. If you're between 18 and 40, Plato isn't history. He's a test. Do you want comfort or clarity? Do you want opinions or understanding? Most people say both. Plato would say you'll choose one when they conflict, and they always do. If this video made you slightly uncomfortable, good. That means something inside you is still awake. Like the video. Subscribe. Not because I asked, but because thinking alone gets lonely, and this channel exists for people who refuse to stay in the cave. Plato never promised happiness. He promised truth. And truth doesn't feel good at first. It burns, it isolates, it humbles, but it also frees. The question Plato leaves you with is simple. Are you watching shadows, or are you brave enough to turn around?